I'll have to clean this stove out this weekend. Probably only have to clean it out about once a week. It burns up really, really well. I've been asked a few times what this is. The brand of this is Pacific Energy. I think they make these out in BC, Canada. These top grates, don't mind the dust. These things swing out of the way, so you can actually cook on top of this. It's hard to keep a stove clean. Just came home for a coffee and some lunch. Got to keep warm. I'm cold already, and it's not even that cold out yet. What will I do when it's minus 40? Well, I guess I better head out to work. I've got lots of work ahead of me. Lots of older saws to diagnose, which is what I really enjoy doing. And I think you guys enjoy it too. Well, let's go. Well, all the leaves have fallen. I got some more wood to put in crates. It's cold. Winter's coming. It is the middle of November. Nice bright sky today, but it is chilly. Well, I have some saws to fix today, so I better get in there and get started. I'll see you in the shop. There's almost more saws in the pickup pile than there is in the repair pile. I have been busy. We have a 462 that doesn't run well. We have an 036 that's been sitting for over 20 years. We're going to go through this saw with a fine-tooth comb. Oh, what's this? Shindaiwa top handle. Doesn't start or doesn't run well. I can't remember which. There's the two-man Hornet. We will get to this. Just not yet. And here we have an 026, an 026, an 024, and an MS260. This is interesting. A viewer brought these 4 saws to me and said if I can get this 026 Arctic running for him, I can keep these other 3 saws. So when I get down here, we'll take care of this one first, and then together we will go through all 3 of these saws completely. That'll be fun. That's what I really enjoy doing. But I still have to fix these guys. So let's start with the 462. Get on my workbench. Good morning. Welcome back to my workbench. My name is Erica, and I am so glad that you're here. Today in the bench, we have the Stihl MS462. The customer who dropped this off said that it bogs out and it has no power. I sold this saw brand new in 2019. This is a 72cc professional chainsaw and is worth about $1,500 Canadian to buy a new one. This is an M-Tronic saw. So we're going to plug this into the computer today, pull some data off of it, such as how many hours are on it, how many times has it started. So come along, let's jump in and find out what the problem is. Okay, so here we are with this 462. We'll just do a quick walk around on it. This thing has a 28-inch bar and chain. So I'm noticing that it has a brand new chain on it. That chain has never cut wood. It's very, very tight. And one bar nut is loose. So I don't know if someone put a new chain on it and then was like, oh yeah, it doesn't run good, just drop it off. Didn't quite finish tightening the bar nuts up. I'm not really sure. When I see a brand new chain, I wonder what did the old chain look like. Maybe the old chain is related to the running issue. We'll never know now because the evidence is gone. So other than that, just a typical commercial saw. It's got some war wounds. Lots of dirt. Just looking for any visible damage. Handles, plastics. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the bar and chain off of it. It's big, it's awkward, and it's in the way. So let's get that off, and then let's plug this thing into the computer and see what we can learn about it. And then we will go from there. So the 462 has captive bar nuts. So these bar nuts stay with the clutch cover, which is quite handy. You don't drop them or lose them. As I said earlier, this is a heavy use saw. That's like rotten dead wood, the smell of that stuff. He's probably due for a rim sprocket. When I pull that off, I'll show you. I'll compare that one to a new one so you can see the difference. This wear plate is loose. The spike is loose. It's a good idea sometimes to check your fasteners just to make sure everything is tight. Sometimes they do vibrate loose, especially on a saw that's run heavy like this. Well, it's not as dirty as the last 462 that we looked at last week. Dirty enough. So I'm going to pull the plug wire off. I need the coil wire. I need access to that computer plug right there. And we'll get this thing plugged in. Spark plug's a little bit late at the tip. Maybe this saw was running hot. All it would take to make this thing run hot is a dull chain. And as we've seen, this thing has a brand new chain on it, so we're not really sure what the old chain looked like. This could be the original plug. A good sign that it's been in there for a while is you can see where the coil wire was actually eating away at the spark plug. Well, let's get this thing plugged into life support here. So I've got the spark plug out. I don't know if I have to be hooked up to the spark plug to collect this information. So I'm going to try doing it without. And I'm actually going to try without plugging into the coil wire as well. Let's just go one wire at a time. So I've got the data port plugged in. I'll try that by itself and we'll see if it'll work. If it won't, then I will plug in what I need to. We'll just do a little experiment here and see what happens. Okay, so just with the data port connection, I am able to collect the data off of it that I wanted. So operating hours, this saw has 65 hours, 31 minutes, and 10 seconds of runtime. And this saw has successfully started 1,537 times. This saw has never been plugged in, and the computer detects no running issues. Well, that's not a lot of hours, and that's not a lot of starts compared to some of the saws that we've seen. Okay, well, let's unplug this thing and get to work. Since we've got the plug out, let's take a quick look down the hole. I'll go grab my camera. Let's go ahead and put a new spark plug in this before we continue on. So NGK CMR 6H, gapped properly. That air filter doesn't look horrible. So I'm just going to put that back in for now. So let's take a look at the fuel. See if there's fuel in it. See what it looks like. See what it smells like. We'll just dump it out and take a look at it. So we're starting with a clean container. There is lots of dirt down in that fuel tank. Lots of dirt. I don't know if you can see it from that angle. Let me dump that into a clear container. There's a bunch of it, and there's still lots in the tank. I don't see any water in the fuel. But that's some dirty stuff. I just poured it into another clean container, and there's more. So I'll just collect all of his dirt over there. I'm going to put this back in the saw. I want to take it outside and start it on his fuel, and we will get this tank all flushed out. We got lots of dirt out of it that time, but there is lots more to get out of there. Just check and make sure there's bar oil in it. Yep, there's probably half a tank of bar oil. Okay, let's step outside with the saw. See how it runs. Okay, I'll meet you out there. Okay, well, this thing starts and runs just like it should. You see the amount of dirt that came out of that fuel tank, and there's still a whole bunch of dirt in there. It's possible that fuel can't get sucked through it fast enough to run this thing when the bar and chain is on it. So what I'm going to do, we're going to clean this tank out, new fuel filter, and replace the fuel solenoid. The solenoid and the filter come in a kit, a very inexpensive kit. But after seeing how much dirt's in his fuel, we're going to do both of those together. Clean this thing up, give it a little service, put the bar and chain back on, and I think that will resolve our issue. Let's find out. But first things first, I'm going to pull this off, just inspect it quick, make sure everything in there looks good, and then we will carry on with the fuel system. This rim sprocket is worn. A little bit of movement here. I just want to make sure everything is okay. So this all needs a really good cleanup. The clutch, the springs, everything is tight, but there's just stuff, dirt packed everywhere, big chunks of sawdust. So I'm going to clean this all up before I put it back together. I'm going to take everything off the saw and take it out for a cleaning. This all needs cleaning. This area, before I remove the carb to get to the solenoid, this all needs cleaning. So let's just strip this thing down, get it cleaned up, and then we'll start putting it back together. And we're going to get all this buildup out of here. There's lots of wood chips jammed in around that brake band. Need all that cleaned out. Okay, we are back from our spa appointment. It went very well. It's not perfect, but it is much better than it was. I got all the dirt, and there was some big wood chips jammed around the clutch. It's all cleaned out. The carburetor area cleaned up. Around the flywheel, the recoil, all that stuff. Let's put the side back together. I'm going to replace the clutch bearing with a new one. I'm just greasing it. There was quite a bit of play in his clutch drum and his bearing, so I'm going to replace it with new. These get worn, and this material, it gets worn down, and then you have play. There is a kit that includes the clutch drum, a new rim sprocket, a new washer, and a new clip. It comes with everything but the bearing. There's a part number for it. That's an 8 there. 1128 007 1000. So he's getting that kit, plus he's getting a new bearing, which there is the part number right there. So I'll show you a new rim sprocket, and I'll show you the one I took off of his, so you can see new versus worn. Somebody was asking me to show these, the difference in the two. There you go. Okay, we'll install that new rim sprocket. New washer. New clip. You can see there's no play there back and forth. When I had the old stuff on it, there was quite a bit of back and forth play. When I took this screw out, it was loose. That was loose. That one's loose too. I gotta go grab a tool to hold the back of that so I can tighten it back up. Other than that, the side is back together. That chain catcher's got a few more wax left in it. Okay, tight, tight, tight. That one I found loose. I just tightened it up earlier. That's tight. Okay. That side's cleaned and back together. Let's dump this fuel out, flush the dirt out, and replace the fuel filter. We've already got quite a bit of dirt out of this tank. All of this came out, but I know there's still more in there. I've got another clean container just so we can kind of see what more comes out. Just give it a bit of a shake. See if I can get most of it out. Lots of dirt. There's still dirt in the tank. I'll just pour some of his fuel just off the top back in, shake it around again, and see if I can get some more of it out. I seen some chunks fall out that time. That's most of it. There is still a little bit in there. Percolating gasoline. I'm just brewing up a fresh cup of coffee. Don't mind me. A few of you suggested in the comments to just run it through a coffee filter. So I'm just giving it a try. I'd like to see all the dirt that's collected in there. I want to show you just how much dirt was in this fuel. All right, coffee time. That's a lot of dirt. There, you can see that good, can't you? That's, my goodness. That's a neat trick though with the coffee filter. That fuel looks a lot different now, doesn't it? That's probably one of the dirtiest tanks I've seen in a while. I took this thing outside and blew what little tiny bit of dirt was left in there out with the air compressor. So we have a clean and dry tank right now. Let's pull that fuel filter out of there. So this fuel M-Tronic service kit. There's the part number. That includes a new orange fuel filter and a new fuel solenoid. We'll leave that sealed up until we get to that point. So let's replace this fuel filter right now. I gave the fuel cap a bit of a wipe down too. There was even dirt on it. So I'll just stick that back on for now. Just remind me before we go outside later to put some fresh fuel in it. You won't forget, right? Okay, let's pull the carburetor off of this. I just pried those pegs out of those rubber things. Okay, got some wiring to unhook here. Just pulled that connector out of there. Just want to be gentle with this wiring. It's could be a little fragile. And then just slip it out of that holder. Okay, and there it is. So we're going to replace that part right there. I got to take this off, that little bracket off, and plug some things here, and then we'll get that replaced. This is a new clean rag. It's not a greasy shop rag yet. I call this piece the controller or control box or something along those lines. Okay, so that's all off. Take that little bracket off there. Got my new sealed part. A little bit of pressed fluid. I just put a couple drops on it as I'm putting the new one in. Okay, so there's our old one. There are some instructions in this baggie, and they basically say when you install the new one, install it straight. You don't want to jam it in there on an angle, and to keep your fingers off those little holes right there. So we don't want any contamination, so we're going to hold it back here. A couple of drops of press fluid. And straight back in, just like that. Okay, so we got our bracket back on. Let's pull the pump side off the carburetor and have a look. The screen is in behind there. Let me just grab a carb stand here. I've got 3 to choose from. Today, let's use the one that Joe sent me from the Greasy Shop Rag. So with that amount of dirt in the fuel tank, do you think anything got past that filter? Just zoom in there, grab a flashlight. Looks spotless clean to me. That's incredible. You probably expected that that little screen would be packed full of dirt. I kind of wondered myself, but here's what I think happened here. So here is, it's dry now. There's all the dirt that I caught in that coffee filter. So you have all this dirt in the fuel tank, and here's the fuel filter that I took out. The saw is trying to draw fuel. This filter is keeping this dirt out, but this dirt is sticking to this fuel filter while this thing is trying to suck fuel. Does that make sense? This filter did an excellent job, but it just wasn't able to draw enough fuel up to run it. I think that's what we have for a problem here. So this is spotless clean. It's always possible that something microscopic got through the filter, through the screen, and into the fuel solenoid valve, but we have replaced that. So I think we've covered all our bases. Let's put this thing back together. Let's think about this filter in a different way. Let's say you have a pond and you want to suck water out of the pond. So you have a hose with a filter on the end, and you throw the hose down into the pond, and the filter sits down in the dirt. You fire the water pump up. It's sucking, trying to suck water up, but your filter's sitting down there in the mud, covered in dirt. The filter's keeping the dirt out, but it's also having a hard time letting the water through at the same time. That's exactly what I believe is happening here. This filter is doing exactly what it's supposed to do, keep the dirt out, but there's just too much dirt. Like, that is extreme amount of dirt. And this is probably covering the filter and just not allowing enough fuel through to power the saw. Let's put this thing back together. You ever seen something as handy as that carb stand? The first time I seen Scott use it at the Greasy Shop Rag, I knew I had to have one. And now I have 3 of them. There's a magnet on the back too, so you can keep your hardware close by. Scott does sell those. You can find him on YouTube at the Greasy Shop Rag. He has some amazing 2-stroke videos, lots of Husqvarna material. Okay, let's throw this carb back on the chainsaw. Okay, so his air filter, I gave it a good cleanup. It's got some more use left in it. I'm sharing my workbench today with Tyler. He's working on a battery-powered Stihl chainsaw. Get back over there to your snowblower table. Okay, so air filter's back on. We already put a new spark plug in it. Put the top cover back on. Okay, let's put the recoil back on. So these saws do have a spark arrestor, and it is right in there. And I don't know if you can see it, but I can see it, and it is perfectly clean. Well, I think we're ready to put the bar and chain back on this. I've done everything here I want to do. Tightened everything up. Spark plug, air filter. Okay, I'll grab the bar and chain. We'll get to it. So it's a brand new chain. I'm just going to look at this bar. A little bit of stuff in there, not too much. Big chunks of whatever they've been into. Maybe dead ash. No, there's lots of dead ash around. There's the oil hole right there at my thumb. Just making sure those are clean. There is no burring. It looks to me like somebody takes care of this bar, cleans up the edges. Got the rails cleaned out. The oil holes are clear. The chain glides around that bar, really nice and smooth. These bigger bars, I'm keeping my hand on the saw here because the bar will actually pull the power head up. I did clean that clutch cover a bit. That's like, I think that's pine resin, like pine sap. It's just really hard to get off. So something else I've noticed while working on the saw that I didn't notice at the beginning is this handle is slightly bent. And this handle back here, there's a little crack in the plastic. There's like a wrinkle in this. So something's happened, whether it got dropped or hit by something. Just a little bit of damage. Well, what do you think? Should we step outside with it? See how it starts and runs with a 28-inch barn chain on it? I think we should. But first, let's put some gas in it. Spotless, clean, dry tank with a new filter. Okay, I'll meet you outside. Okay, so this MS462 starts good and runs good. We found a few things. The big thing being tons of dirt down inside that fuel tank. And I think this dirt was restricting fuel flow. But that little fuel filter did a really good job of keeping that dirt from moving up into the carburetor. So tank all cleaned out, new fuel filter, replaced the fuel solenoid on the carburetor, new spark plug, cleaned the air filter, gave the whole saw a bit of a blow off, and did a little bit of clutch bearing, rim sprocket work, just replaced a few worn out items. So when the owner dropped this saw off, he was pretty specific about when this saw was on its side in wood, it would bog out. I'm pretty sure I have resolved the issue. I think it's the dirt. But I'm going to ask him to let me know for sure when he puts this thing back to work and let me know if it is resolved, and I will let you guys know. So I think that's it for now on the MS462 that bogs out. I have a whole line of saws over there waiting for me. This morning I have had a Stihl MS440 dropped off. I've had a little Mariama chainsaw come in and a Stihl 036 plus some other stuff. So I got lots of work to do. I'm going to go grab a fresh cup of coffee and get on to the next chainsaw. Thank you so much for watching.